Well, hello, I'm Jan Watson, and I want to welcome you to this information session about a new Graham travel study program, Discovering Northern Greece, Macedonian and Byzantine Treasures. I'm joined by our trip scholar, Zoe Eisenman, and by a frequent flyer on our Greece programs, Catherine Sanders. I'll start with an overview of the program and explain the application process, and then we will hear from Zoe and Catherine. That should take about 25 minutes, and then we'll turn to your questions. Our program tonight will end no later than 7 p.m. Central Time. We'll take your questions through the chat function, which you'll find at the bottom of your Zoom window. And we recommend that you use speaker view during the program, and your view controls are at the top right of your Zoom screen. I want to begin by recommending that you visit our Northern Greece webpage. And you will find helpful information there, such as the trip itinerary, what's included, accommodations, fees, travel requirements, and the cancellation policy. And you can find the link to that webpage in the chat. Also on the webpage, you will find the Apply Now button. The application period for this trip is open, and you are welcome to apply at any time. And we'll talk a bit more about that later. This is our first trip to Northern Greece, and I worked with our Athens-based archaeologist, John Leonard, and with trip scholar Zoe Eisenman to develop the itinerary. I think we've put together something special, walking in the footsteps of Macedonian kings Philip II and Alexander the Great, and exploring richly decorated Byzantine churches and monasteries in impressive northern Greece. The trip dates are, I think you're ahead of me, Zoe, 2 ahead. Go back. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. The trip dates are September 8th through 17th, 2024, and will be based in Greece's second city, Thessaloniki, and you can fly in and out of Thessaloniki Airport, Macedonia. Our partner for the trips to Greece is the Athens Center, a long-established educational institution that works with many U.S. universities. The Graham School has a decades-long partnership with the Athens Center, and I have run trips with them since 2017. The Athens Center provides our ground support, and they provide a bilingual trip representative to travel with us. So, who are the trip leaders? Archeologist John Leonard will lead our daily excursions and site visits. John helped develop and led our trip to Crete and Santorini last September, and has co-led 2 spring break in Greece programs, and that's a program that's designed for our students in the basic program. John lives in Greece. He is an experienced trip leader with adult students, and his scholarship is broad and deep, and he is a wonderful storyteller. Trip scholar Zoe Eisenman co-led the 2019 program in Greece. Zoe is the academic director for the Graham School and an instructor in the basic program of liberal education for adults. I serve as the trip director and will be with you in Greece, ensuring that the program is well managed and that you are well looked after leading up to and during the trip. So where are we going? Well, here's a map. And if you look down at the bottom, you'll see Attica and Athens. And then if you kind of go straight up from there, you'll see a red dot. Now you're in Macedonia, and there is Thessaloniki. During our trip, we'll be heading, after several days, we'll head to the west, and we'll visit areas around Pella and Vergina. And that's a really rich area with lots of archaeological sites and museums. Then we'll head back to Thessaloniki, and then we'll go to the Halkidiki area, which is this 3-pronged area, very watery. We'll go to Amphipolis, which is up at the top there. And then we'll also visit Stragira, which is kind of above where Stratoni is on this map. Then we're going to go down that last finger and we'll be taking a boat trip around Mount Athos before heading back to Thess. So I mentioned that we'll be based in Thessaloniki, and that is a city that was once the second most important in the Christian era, Christian in the Byzantine Empire, excuse me, I should get my sentence right here, after Constantinople. John has organized several walkabouts in Thess. He calls it Thess, which I find much easier to use. And that will take us through the ages from the ancient city to pre-modern. Along the way, we will visit ancient walls and towers, Byzantine baths, a Roman agora, the arch and palace of Galerius, several museums, and many brilliantly painted churches and monasteries. We will then take a 2-day trip west to visit ancient archaeological sites in Pella, Lefkada, and ancient Mieza. And there is a sanctuary there of nymphs, and that is where young Alexander was tutored by Aristotle. The next day, we will visit ancient Aige, where Alexander the Great was proclaimed king in 336 BC. The palace in Aige just reopened in January after a 16-year restoration. We will see the royal tombs and visit the new polycentric museum of Aige, which showcases the achievements, lives, and artifacts of Philip II and Alexander. This area west of Thess is a wine region, and we will visit and enjoy a local winery and soak up the beautiful scenery. Now, not to be missed is our 2-day foray into the three-pronged Halkidiki region. We will visit, as I said, Amphipolis, a city that played a part in the Roman civil wars, and we will visit Stragira, the birthplace of Aristotle. On our second day in the region, we will take a boat ride near Mount Athos and learn about the area and monasteries that are inaccessible from land. That afternoon, we'll head back to Thess, and the next morning, head home or further afield. So what's included in the trip? I think you would, yep, there we are. There will be a pre-trip seminar with our trip scholar, Zoe Eisenman. It covers double occupancy hotel accommodations, but single travelers may book by paying the single supplement. There's daily breakfast and lunch, and also a welcome dinner. You have archaeologist and expert-led site and museum tours with additional contributions from our trip scholar. Covers entry to all the sites and museums, coach transportation to sites outside of Thess, and support services provided by the Athens Center. Who can go on the trip? All Graham students and UChicago alumni and friends of the university are welcome to apply. I want you to keep in mind that the trip will require a lot of walking in hilly Greece and in archaeological sites. Participants must be able to climb 2 to 3 flights of stairs and able to stand for at least 90 minutes. I am serious about this, and I'm not exaggerating. We can meet many dietary requirements, but we may not be able to accommodate all dietary restrictions. So, are you ready to apply? Our short questionnaire can be accessed by clicking on the Apply Now button on the Discover Northern Greece webpage. There are 3 parts to the application: personal information, special needs and requests, and the acknowledgement. Please answer all the questions, including information about your connection to UChicago and your other educational experience. Applications will be reviewed promptly, and you will be contacted with any questions that arise and notified of your status. Once accepted, You will be provided with the information for making your deposit and securing your spot on the trip. And again, the link to the webpage is in the chat. Now, in this lovely photograph, which is from our Crete Thera trip, although this is in Athens, you can see our archaeologist, John Leonard, smiling away there. He's the closest person to us in the photo. But due to the time difference between here and Athens, John could not join us this evening, but he has sent a message to you, and I'd like to read that to you now. So John says, I am honored to be given this chance to say a few words about past and forthcoming Graham trips to Greece. One of my greatest joys is to share the adventure and richness of Greece's history and culture with visiting academic groups, and the Graham School have quickly become my favorite study tour and preferred travel companions. Every region in Greece has its own character, intriguing history, and challenges. Touring and learning about the Greeks and their complex world can be tiring, as we often walk quite a bit uphill and down dale, navigating the weather and occasional crowds until we reach that next superb local meal, which we savor together, chatting about our most recent discoveries. This is what has impressed me most about Graham School groups, that everyone has pulled together as a team, supported each other, shared each other's passions and interests, seldom complained, and always been ready for the next great turn in the road. And Graham students listen attentively and ask the best questions, showing your interest and depth of intellectual curiosity and your delight in what you're seeing and experiencing. So now we are looking forward to a new adventure, this time in northern Greece. While southern Greece is all about the Mycenaeans, Minoans, the Trojan War, Athenian ascendancy, Olympic Games, sanctuaries, and the mysteries of the Delphic Oracle, northern Greece is the land of Alexander, of Athenian colonies, of Roman expansion into the Greek East, and of the rise of early Christianity and of the Byzantine Empire, within which Thessaloniki featured very prominently. This means we have much before us. As we explore a newly restored Macedonian palace, visit the spot where King Philip II was assassinated, walk in the footsteps of Aristotle, and especially of his student Alexander, where the future king grew up, studied, and eventually mustered his troops and headed eastward to conquer the Levant, Egypt, and the Middle East, and to set the stage for the hugely influential Hellenistic world. Also awaiting us are magnificent Byzantine churches and other monuments with extraordinary wall paintings and freshly cleaned and colorful mosaics. Indeed, tracing back the long thread of Christianity nearly to its start, as it was spun right here in Greek lands, is just one of the great stories we'll be following as we investigate the richly woven tapestry that ancient Byzantine and modern Orthodox Greek represent. I encourage you to come and join the fun, and I look forward to meeting you all or to seeing you again. So that is from our archaeologist, John Leonard, who I think was also mentioned somewhere as also a writer and an editor. I loved what he had to say. So at this point, I would like to turn things over to our trip scholar, Zoe Eisenman, to say a few words. Zoe?
Thanks, Jan. Hey, everybody. I'm Zoe Eisenman. I think I know most of you, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm a longtime basic program instructor, and I'm the current director of academics at the Graham School. I'm very excited to be joining the Northern Greece trip as the trip scholar. I'm going to be putting together a list of readings for you guys to explore before the trip that spans the long history of this amazing region, from classical through the Hellenistic, Roman, and Byzantine eras. And I'll also be conducting the pre-trip seminar. And we may throw in a couple of discussion sessions along the trip. We're still working on the plan for that, but that's always a possibility. So I'm hoping that we're going to have some interesting text to go along with all the wonderful archaeological sites that we're going to be seeing. I did want to mention that if you're interested in taking a summer class that relates to this trip, you might want to check out Kendall Sharp's course, How to Read Ancient Greek Art and Archaeology. He's going to be talking about, how to get the most out of visiting sites like the ones we're going to be seeing. I put a link to the course there. So that could be a fun way to sort of get ready for the trip if you're interested in doing that over the summer. That course starts in June. And just wanted to say that I'm looking forward to visiting these sites with John and with our group, and to enjoying some of the lovely wine of the region along the way. So thanks, Jan.
Well, thank you, Zoe. Okay, so I'm sure you'll be interested in hearing from our next speaker, Catherine Sanders. Catherine is a third-year student in the basic program of liberal education for adults and has been taking classes with the Graham Schools since 2017. She has been a participant on 2 of our trips to Greece. And now, Catherine, if we could, you want to unmute and let's hear from you.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I told Jan I've got a little bit of laryngitis today, so forgive me if I sound a bit froggy. It's not to dampen my enthusiasm. Yes, as mentioned, I had the very good fortune to travel to Greece twice in 2023, within 6 months of each other, with Graham, both trips with Jan and John on a leadership team. And I will say that second trip, just so soon after the first, was definitely like not on my vacation calendar or frankly in my budget for the year. But the first trip to Athens and the Peloponnese was so great that I just really couldn't resist the opportunity to go back and travel with the same people in a different part of Greece, in Crete and Thera. So I got creative and made it happen. I had no regrets. And I see Jeffrey on the call too. He suffered the same fate as me, and I think also without regrets. And so now, they're doing it to me again and taking this strong leadership team to a new location, and then adding Zoe as a trip scholar. It's just, it's irresistible. So, so what's so great about it? I think there's a number of things that made this type of trip so strong and have such pull for me, from the content to the leaders, the participants, and just the place. So first, just a word on the content and itinerary, like in the context of the basic program and other Graham studies. As Jan mentioned, I'm in year 3 now. I took the first trip in the spring of year 2, and then the second trip in the fall of year 3. And it was just ideal from my perspective. I had enough knowledge and reading about the history and culture and characters from the early readings in the program to understand and appreciate a lot of what we were seeing and hearing as we traveled. But at the same time, still being in the midst of that 4-year reading program, being able to immerse myself in those places and learn more deeply about them, it really enhanced my experience coming back. And then in the classes that I've had following the trips, just having that added context and experience of being there has really helped bring those texts to life. And then, as mentioned, there's the joy of being able to travel and learn with these brilliant and gifted leaders. John has this breadth and depth of expertise and storytelling that comes together in just an astounding way. And one thing I always appreciate about him is he'd be so well prepared and so well versed and in whatever sort of the topic or place of the day was. Great background, just great context, all that. But then even more interesting was how easily he could pivot. Like if some question came out of left field, and again, the Graham students sometimes are able to ask questions that aren't really specifically related to the topic of the day, and how he could just, both he and Kendall had been the trip scholar on one of my trips, and I'm sure Zoe will do the same, can pivot to a completely different topic that was not the topic of the day and address it with as much depth and storytelling and passion as whatever we were supposed to be talking about. So that was a real treat about having that depth of knowledge. Just so good off the cuff. And as mentioned, Jan had said, John really enjoys traveling with us because the students are engaged and informed. Your traveling companions are curious and ask good questions and have some shared knowledge. And I think that keeps it interesting for John and the leaders as well. It's not sort of the same old tours that they're just trying to get through, So it was also neat, I thought, to see how the trip scholar and the archaeologist, the local leaders, could kind of play off of each other and ask each other questions. And sometimes one would have greater depth of knowledge on something and just be learning from each other too, and sharing their own expertise back and forth. There's just a very nice relationship and rapport there. So, and then there's Jan. You couldn't ask for a more competent, fun, flexible, but firm when she needs to be. Person to coordinate with the local Athens Center leaders, manage all the details, keep everything on track, all with good grace and cheer. So mix in these curious fellow travelers and the stunning beauty of Greece, and it's just an excellent experience all around. And I am excited to return again in September.
Oh gosh, well, thanks,
I'm
Kat.
gushing. I'm gushing.
Well, that was quite a testimonial. Thanks very much. I was thinking when you said about the back and forth between all of the team leaders, a lot of that is about pronunciations, which Zoe and I were having a session about right before we started here today, because the modern Greek pronunciations are so different from the ancient Greek, and Zoe knows the ancient Greek better. And I said, well, I listened to all these pronunciation things on Google today to try and get things right, but it was very different from what her pronunciation was. So there's always interesting facts coming out. So, I think we could probably let people ask questions live if they want to. We can just unmute you if you want to ask a question. I do see that someone has asked how many people will be on the trip. And we have a maximum of 16. And I can tell you that we already have some applications.
Yeah, if somebody has questions, you can either raise your hand or type it in the chat and we can try to answer them for you.
Well, one thing I was thinking about for people who maybe haven't been on one of the other Greece trips, and they might feel like, wow, what about Athens? How can I go to Greece without going on the Acropolis in Athens? And it's easy to travel between the cities. There are trains. You can fly. So if you wanted to add something on, of course, you may have heard about that train accident that was in Greece last September, but you can take the train. So anyway, you can expand on this, and of course, we're going to be very close to, if you wanted to go over to Turkey afterwards or other places in Europe, there are not direct flights to Greece for the most part. Every once in a while in season, you can find a direct flight to Athens, but you almost always have to connect somewhere. So it does give you an opportunity to do a stopover if you want to plan it that way. I know there was some discussion in the chat about autumn quarter, and you'll be returning like 10, 12 days before autumn quarter begins. So we kind of wedged it in between Labor Day and autumn quarter. Jeffrey, I was curious if you wanted to say anything about your double experience in Greece last year. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I guess I did. You can't unmute? Okay.
Let me get you. There you are. Here, try it now.
Hello. Yeah, I went on the same trips Catherine did, so I couldn't put it any better than she has put it. I shared gelato with her and her husband in Crete, and I shared a sunset with Jan in Santorini, and they were both like experiences I will never live down. So I'm really excited about this trip, seeing if I can get the time off work to do it, but I hope it doesn't fill up soon. So I do have a question, and by no means does this, take away from the greatness of the trips that we went on, but there were a couple hiccups with the Athens Center. So like one trip, missing a trireme, and another trip time-stamped Acropolis tickets. And so I guess my only worry is I noticed some of the itinerary here, they are less traveled archaeology sites. And, just by looking some of them up, that, you need an archaeologist there to unlock the gates to let folks in. And so I just want to make sure Jan has the Athens Center triple checking all locations before we get there, if I'm lucky enough to attend.
Yeah, well, things do happen, as they do when you're doing your own travel. But the things that Jeffrey mentioned were they were big deals. I mean, we had special access to go to the Parthenon, to go into the Parthenon with an archaeologist, but our tickets were stamped with the wrong time and we couldn't get in. So it was really awful. We did eventually make it on another day, but yeah, that was a bad start. The Athens Center has changed some of their staffing, which I'm finding to be a good thing. And also I can say that on our recent trip in March, we did not have any hiccups. So I think those are two good signs. I would also say that we're already working on spring break for 2025. Which is earlier than usual. So I think that there are some good things happening at the Athens Center. And
Great.
yes, I will totally
Be on
ride
their case.
herd on them, or whatever the correct thing to say would be. But one time we were in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, and they just started telling everybody to leave. And the guards were going on strike, without notice. So those kind of things we can't help. But yeah, other things we should be able to solve in advance. Yeah.
I will add, John Leonard is great. As Catherine was saying, he just speaks with such a breadth of knowledge of everything Greek. I recall just enjoying one of the croutons in the salad we had in one of our meals, and then he told me what kind of bread it was, and how they have it in the supermarkets, and I found it here at home at some Greek grocer. And so just little touches like that just add to the richness of the experience. And he is an American in Greece, and so he really is relatable. And also, if I could speak on his temperament, it's just so good for a trip leader or archaeologist taking you on these tours, because you never know what you're going to come across, or other individuals eavesdropping on your trip. And he is just amazingly smooth, and you'll learn a lot from him by going on one of these trips.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I'll mention then, in terms of this might be good to know that we do have a in-ear system that everyone wears, so that you can hear John when we're in the sites and museums. And in case we come up against another group, you're still able to hear what he's saying. I know I mentioned about a lot of walking and standing. But another thing John's really good at is finding places where we can sit for a few minutes. And even if we're not right in front of what he wants to talk about, he'll sit us down there, so that, and then he'll talk, and then we'll move to what he wants us to see. So whenever it's possible, we take a break. And certainly, when we're in the cities, we also have the opportunity to stop for coffee. or a cool drink or whatever it is that people need. Anybody have a question?
I've been answering some of the ones in the chat.
Okay.
And so a lot about the readings. Still putting together the reading list. This last one, Matt Burrows had asked what time periods are emphasized in terms of the sites visited, archaic, classical, Roman, etc. And I think the answer is basically yes. There's a lot of different eras. So we're going to be seeing some classical sites, a lot of Hellenistic stuff. So Alexander, Philip are sort of the beginning edge of the Hellenistic period. There's a bunch of Roman things in Thessaloniki and elsewhere. And then a lot of these Byzantine churches that are so colorful and beautiful, and monasteries and things like that. So I'm trying to pick texts that sort of cover a broad span. I'm also trying to pick things that are not super long because I don't want to overburden people with too much reading. So I'm going to try to pick things that sort of are, short enough that they're not too much to manage, but that tell you something about what was going on at the time, and from a variety of perspectives. So I'm going to try to throw in some Christian stuff, some oratory, perhaps history, everything from like Thucydides up through Plutarch and the Bible and whatever I can find from Byzantine things. That's sort of a little out of my normal area, but I think I'll be able to find some interesting stuff there. So I'm working on putting that together, and hopefully we'll have a at least a tentative list for you guys by the beginning of summer quarter. So I have plenty of time to look at it.
Well, we don't want to keep you longer than we need to.
Oh, let's see. Jeff's asking, will any of the men be allowed to dock at Mount Athos at the convent?
I don't think that the boat trip that we're taking docks at any of the places, but I know at least one of the monasteries that we're visiting has a dress code that we have to abide by. And I think we'll be finding out more about those kinds of restrictions or suggestions as we go on. But yeah, it's a thing. Let's see.
Yeah, and Kelly asked, do you anticipate readings in multiple books or printouts? I'm going to put together a PDF packet so that all the things that we'll be talking about or looking at will be available. But I'll also have like a other readings list as well. So if people want to delve into other things more in depth, they have some resources for that too. So.
Daniel is asking about hotels, luggage, and dinners. So the hotels, when we're in a city, we have a little better chance of or a broader selection of hotels. The hotels are definitely 3 to 4 stars and probably closer to 3 in most cases. In the smaller areas, sometimes there's not as much option for the hotels, but we do have high standard for it, and do our best to choose the very best one. The hotels always provide breakfast, and we will also keep our hotel in Thess the entire time. So when we do the overnights in the other regions, you can just take, what you need for overnight. You don't have to close up your suitcase and check out of the hotel and all of that stuff. We'll just keep our rooms the whole time. In terms of luggage, it's really good to bring the smallest suitcase you can, the least amount that you can. Generally, people have been bringing on the 10 and 11-day trips. They've been bringing carry-on size bags. We did on the last trip that we took, we had arranged to have everyone's laundry done if they chose about halfway through the trip, and that really helped people. And so we'll definitely look into that again, because then you only have to pack for half and then you get clean clothes. We don't have a specific restriction on luggage, except that I would suggest that you don't bring 2 suitcases, a suitcase and a backpack, that sort of thing seems to work well. You do end up sometimes having to roll your suitcase or carry your suitcase to where the bus is, because in the smaller areas, sometimes the bus can't pull up to the hotel. That can be uphill. And it can be on kind of a bumpy sidewalk. So again, it's good not to have too much with you. Most of the dinners you will be on your own, but what we find is that our groups tend to want to get together for dinner. Sometimes everybody goes to the same place, or at least, a big half of the group, that kind of thing. So we have a welcome dinner planned, and then we have on our, I think it's on our final day after the boat trip, I think that's when we'll do it, that we'll do a farewell lunch, because when we get back to Thess for that last night, we don't exactly know what time we're going to get there, because things can change during the day. And so we didn't want to plan the dinner that night, just in case it's people are, wanting, maybe they have early flights and that sort of thing, and want to get on with getting ready to travel. There, everywhere that we're staying, there will be restaurants in walking distance. So that won't be a problem. Yeah, Jeffrey, can you want to be unmuted again?
I just want to mention about dinner. Some days are so filled with activity, and Greek lunches can be so large, you won't even be worried about dinner on certain days, other than, maybe getting a quick souvlaki or a bite to eat. I know people want to go out and experience everything they can and go to a nice restaurant, but at least from my experience, there were some nights where people just went back to their hotel. They needed some rest and maybe a quick bite to eat, and they were ready to go for the next day. So I wouldn't be too concerned that, dinner always isn't included in the nights. The lunches there can be huge.
That's a good point. Anybody else? Are there any more? Oh yeah, Kelly Cohen has a question. Hang on, we'll get you unmuted.
Right now.
Thank you. Yeah, Jen and Zoe probably by now both know I really talk much better. Is this still considered peak travel season, or are we on shoulder season? Is it going to be a little bit less crowded? And do we know, can we expect, I realize it's Europe and most of Europe does not have air-conditioned hotels, but do we know anything about any air conditioning and accommodations?
Kelly's been to Oxford and experienced the lack of air conditioning in Oxford.
A little warm and late.
Every hotel we've ever stayed at in Greece was air conditioned.
Okay.
So that should not be an issue at all. The weather that time of the year should be in the low 80s, and maybe even a little cooler in Thess, but the temperatures might drop a little more at night. But and then in terms of the shoulder season, which seems to be very, very tiny these days, there's not much shoulder season left. It is still considered part of the high season, September is. But I think, as Jeffrey mentioned, we're going to be in a part of Greece that is less touristed. So that'll help. But what doesn't help, because someone's going to mention this if I don't, is that there is a international trade expo in Fes during the time that we're there. So this is one reason why I know exactly how many people can come on the trip and exactly how many singles and doubles I have, because we had to reserve the hotel rooms a couple of months ago to make sure that we had that secured. So Fes might be a little bit crowded in terms of restaurants and that sort of thing, and maybe walking in the city center. But I don't think that those people attending the trade expo will necessarily be going to the museums and the archaeological sites. So I don't think it's that's going to present a problem for us. What we may not encounter, which would be kind of delightful, I sound like a curmudgeon to say this, but we come up against these groups of, I don't know why they're always Italian, but it's like 50 gorgeous Italian high school students, you know, or and then just as soon as they pass, here comes another group, you know, in these really, really huge groups. I don't think we'll see much of that in Northern Greece. Anybody else? Chuck, you got a question? No? No? Okay. There's a lot of people on this call that have been to Greece with us before. Catherine, Ted, Charles and Mina, Jim, let's see, Carol, Catherine, yeah. There's a lot of folks here, and I hope that is a testament for those of you who haven't been to Greece with us, that you know that people are interested in going back again.
Dan, I put our emails in the
Oh,
chat, so if people
yeah, I forgot to mention Don. Don's been with us too. Yeah. Yeah, now Charles does have a question. Chuck, yeah. Or a comment, perhaps.
Hamid and his wife are also considering.
Oh,
I think
great.
he's working right now, but
Ah, okay, great. Well, Hamid, like Catherine and Jeffrey, has gone on 2 trips. So he came on the Crete trip last September. So that would be great. Yeah.
Jeffrey, were you asking about Ketty? Yeah. I'm pretty sure we have requested Ketty, right, Jan?
Oh, I always request Ketty. There is a new person working for the Athens Center named Helen. I can't remember her last name right now. She's a freelance journalist for Al Jazeera, and I did meet her in March. I had lunch with her, and I really liked her. So we've asked for Ketty, but my second choice is Helen. And Helen is a full-fledged adult. So that's always nice to have someone who's more our age, because they understand us and our needs so much better. The young people can never believe how many times we are asking, can we stop and go to the bathroom? So, and Ketty is our favorite representative from the Athens Center. For anyone who's met her, she's a treasure. Well, oh, Kelly again. The deadline. Yes. Okay. So, my personal deadline is, could you all please apply right away, because I have to leave for Oxford in 5 weeks. But in terms of what we're looking for, is that we would like to have people apply before June 3rd. and then the deposit, is sort of due as you are accepted, or no later than June 3rd. And then the balance for the tuition would be due by July 22nd. And the application, I know I mentioned this, it's very brief. It doesn't ask a whole lot of questions, but the questions that it asks are things that we absolutely have to know. So just answer those questions, and that's all you have to do. If you're concerned about the walking and standing and all of that, I noticed that more and more people are starting to bring their trekking poles with them on the trips. And that seems to help quite a bit. And then we had, remember Richard brought one of those little, I couldn't even believe it made a seat. It was so tiny, but he brought something that he could sit down anywhere he wanted to. So yeah, it was very handy. Well, if no one else has a question, you've got our emails, and certainly welcome to ask any questions that way, or I can meet with you one-on-one if you need. Just let me know, and I hope you'll decide to join us. As John said, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be really exciting to see this area of Greece that will be so new, I think, to most of us. I'm wondering if it's new to Ted, because I think he's been everywhere. But oh, can you unmute Ted?
There, no. Yes, it will be new to me, although I have been to North Macedonia.
Okay. I knew it. All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming, and be in touch, or go to the website and read more. The full itinerary is there, except for maybe where we try to cram in some discussion sessions. So thanks for coming. It was really great to see so many faces that I know, so many people I know, and so many of you that have been with us before. That's really gratifying to know that you're interested in coming again. So thank you.
Thanks, and hope to
Very
see
much.
you.